Hey guys, it's Brainez here, and today I'm going to be going over how to make good depth of field based on your scene or scenario in Blender. I'll be showcasing 3 different ways to create depth, each catered to a specific scene or scenario. To follow this video, all you need is Blender and a working PC. First scenario, which is right here, we have all 3 of the characters on the same x-axis. So, and we want all 3 of the characters to be in focus. In fact, I'm also just going to add some more of these characters just in the background to show you basically how this type of depth works. So we're going to start by creating a camera and just positioning it, getting it into a nice area that we can focus. To start, we're going to go into rendered mode here, and we're going to enable depth of field. So to start off, we want, just to see what we're doing, I'm going to turn the f-stop all the way down. And what this does is it basically makes the blur more intense. So all we want to do is we want to change the focus distance. So now, and so like for example, the lower it is, the closer it will be, and then the further it is, the further it will be. I'm gonna actually set the render here to cycles and GPU compute. And as you can see here, the depth is obviously working, and we have these 3 characters in focus. Now the reason they're not fully in focus is because the camera is not parallel to the axes that the characters are on. So as you can see here, it has been zeroed out. I'm just gonna move the rotation down a bit, just so, yep. So now if we go into the camera and we readjust our depth settings, the characters are each in focus. Now if we set to cycles, you can see that, so all 3 of the characters are in focus. This is really good for scenes with multiple objects in them. Especially if they're on the same line or on the same axis. So this is on the y-axis, and yeah, and whatnot. So that's the first scenario. All it is doing is it's basically it's not focusing on a specific object. It's just using the distance from the camera to focus on your object. And if you wanted to keyframe this, you would just animate the distance and so forth. So for the second scenario, we are going to be creating depth by focusing on an object. So to do this, obviously we create our camera, and we're just going to position it right around here. So here we have our camera. We're going to open up the camera properties. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to enable depth of field. Well, that's kind of obvious. And in depth of field, we're going to set this to cycles. We're going to set this to GPU compute. I'm going to add an HDRI real quick. Okay, so I have just added the HDRI, so now the shading is fairly accurate. So to do the focus on an object, it's very, very simple. It's probably the most simple out of all 3 of these. We're just going to click this little eyedropper tool right down here, and we're just going to click on the object. So now we can turn down the f-stop. And as you can see, it does a really nice job. I personally don't like this method because, as you can see, the top here is in focus, but the bottom half isn't necessarily in focus. So if you want a specific area to be in focus, especially for close-up shots, I would use the method that I'm about to show next, which is using an empty. But this method is just good for if you're lazy and you just want to add depth to, or focus on an object and blur out the background. But an empty is more superior to this method, but this is just, I guess, an easier method to do. Okay guys, so for the third and final method to do some really nice depth of field inside of Blender, this will be using the empty to create your depth. So let's begin. So first we're going to create our camera. We're just going to move this into an appropriate position. So I'd say maybe right around here looks nice. Yeah, right around here. I'm just going to rotate this. So to do this, what we want to do is we want to go ahead, Shift A, you want to add an empty and make sure it's plane axes. And all we're going to do is we're just going to move the empty to the area that we want to be in focus. So in this case, I'm going to do the head of this character. So right around there. That looks really nice to me. I'm gonna move it back here. Perfect. So now what we want to do is in our camera, we want to enable depth of field. Next, we're going to click this eyedropper tool and we're going to choose the empty as the focus object. Now if we go into rendered mode, and I do this. Now if we go into rendered mode and we turn down the f-stop a bit, actually I'm going to do this more for a more intense effect. You will see that, whoa, if I go into rendered, you will see that only the area that we wanted it to be in focus is really in focus. I know this is really blurred right now, so let me just do this just a bit. That. So if we look over here, you'll see that that area is in focus, and in comparison, everything else is just blurred completely. And the cool thing about this is no matter where we move, the focus object or the focus point will always be there. See? So now if we go into rendered, you will see that the focus point is right here and everything else is blurred. And we can even change the focus point. Heck, we can make it so then the focus point is on this guy back here. So now if we go into rendered mode, you'll see, hey, the focus point is here and these two areas are blurred. And now we can go over here and you'll still see that the focus point is in that same area. Another thing that I want to point out about depth is these kind of just cameras in general actually. The more you increase the focal length, the more intense the blurriness will be for depth. But yes, that's about it. Hope that you guys did enjoy the tutorial. Have a great day. My name's Brainez and peace.